Hello everyone, welcome to a Second Thoughts overview of Teclis, of the High Elves. As always in these reviews I went over the initial turns and got a feel for the faction, how it can play out. This is my conclusion, and in the end of the video I will show you some army compositions that I would try out. I would love to try them out in the campaign, As always, this is not a full in-depth guide, but rather how I would approach the campaign, and it most certainly will help you out. Without further, let's play with Teclis of the High Elves. For our short victory condition, we need to destroy Sartorial's Watchers, very much your first enemy, Clan Morbidus, located here, a little bit more to the east, the Oracles of Zinj, which is in the southern Chaos Wastes, and the Bubonic Swarm, also in the southern Chaos Waste. You also have to occupy, loot, razor, sack 30 different settlements. Now, a little bit of an overview here. The issue is quite simple, of course. It should give you a solid base, of course, but still it would incur in some uninhabitable climate, which is a bit of a problem typically. Now, achieving this, hero capacity +3 for all heroes, it's always nice. Like I always say, it's one of the most frequent buffs from all campaigns, and it always helps ensuring that you have scouts or heroes in your armies without spending too much on buildings for them. Now, the long victory, of course, includes the short victory conditions to occupy, loot, razor, stack 70 different settlements, and then we need to control 6 specific settlements. So the Fortress of Dawn, located here, get a hold of it. The Tower of the Sun, look at it in these islands. The Tower of the Stars as well. Tor Elisor, so pretty much go to the islands. Grontimingle, located here to the north. You can see there on the minimap, but over here on the Badlands. The Citadel of Dusk, pretty sure this is the closest one. The Star Tower, also pretty close. The Great Turtle Isle, okay, near Rakarth. And Arnheim, located pretty much near Ulthuan. Despite the fact that it is lengthy, I'm going to say that it's a pretty short victory, let's say, for a long campaign victory at least. This is because I have to compare it with Tyrion's, It's much easier to achieve this. So if you want a long campaign victory to get a feel for the faction, but still you don't want to play all through Tyrion, for instance, Teclis may be your choice. Achieving this hero recruit rank as +10 as for all provinces, of course, for your reward. Always good to ensure you have good heroes. This basically implies great casters overall for the most part. Now, Teclis is the High Lore Master, so he enjoys further diplomatic relations with men, High Elves, Wood Elves, Lizardmen, and Dwarfs. Pay attention to the Lizardmen. This helps out very much throughout the game. Allied recruitment cost is also cheaper by 50%, and he does have recruit rank +5 for Lore Masters of Hoeth, Mages, and Archmages, as well as lesser recruit costs for Sword Masters of Hoeth and Phoenix units. Now, all of that really cool. It just means that you'll be engaging more into magic and into magical heroes, for instance. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Recruitment cost, of course, that means that Sword Masters of Hoeth are one of the best infantry units, I would say, in the game, and Phoenix units, of course, you can have some good developments with them, some good army compositions with them. Now, climates. Let's talk about the biggest issue with Teclis. He's surrounded by mainly uninhabitable climate, I would say. Lustria is a good place for him to go to try and get a foothold. That's where I would try to dominate. Of course, these islands as well nearby, but the southern Chaos Wastes, what a problem. Still, most of the map is actually either unpleasant or uninhabitable, especially with the mountains. There's a lot of mountains in the map, actually, so that determines a lot in terms of who gets to have better climate than others. So it's an average faction, not the worst to conquer the whole map with, to dominate the whole map with, but be prepared for some issues with climate, as you can see here, of course, with the unpleasant climate. Let me just put it here. Yeah, so you're gonna have some issues, especially with the casualty replenishment rate. So your starting location is quite easy to defend, especially after you eliminate the initial factions. Kairos adds a bit of an issue, of course, as his shenanigans may cause problems earlier on. Be ready for that. Now your starting province is 3 settlement province, with a resource building in Fortress of Dawn for spices. Due to the research, there's a specific one that implies that you may have some better trade deals. So trade is also a focus for Teclis here. Now, typical expansion will be to dominate the south of the map here, and then decide whether you go into the Lustria or into these islands over here. Yeah, basically that's what you're gonna have to do. You're near the water, of course, which means you will greatly benefit from any goodies around. Make sure you do. Be prepared for a fight to ensure that you get the most out of it. But yeah, as I've said before, the southern Caseway it's uninhabitable climate, so it may be quite of an issue for you. Diplomatically, you're part of the Order Tide, and you enjoy bonuses with men, high elves, wood elves, lizard men, and dwarfs. The unique bonus with lizard men will be very important. Outposts will definitely be in the shape of those lizard men, and of Britonia, for instance, should Albric, for instance, join you. Enemies will most likely be the Chaos factions early on, followed by whoever you decide to strike next. Like if you go here towards Lustria, for instance, be prepared for the Vampire Coast Skaven, for instance. If you go north here, Vampire Counts and some other Lizardmen factions that you may need to overcome. So yeah, that's sort of idea. Now, for the outposts, as always, as you can see here, mostly into single entities, some flying units, some armor-piercing cavalry. That will be the case for some good compositions for the High Elves. Speaking of mechanics, influence. It allows two things: recruitment of better lords and heroes, and also to steer enemies and allies into whatever you prefer. Let me show both. So, if you go and try to recruit a lord, for example, you'll see that if this one costs 60 influence. That is because the traits are good. You know, when they have good traits, it will cost some influence, 15 at least. But if it doesn't have anything, it will have some debuff. So in this case, that's the issue. You always should aim to hire lords with some influence, particularly with 60 influence. You can see this immediately. This would be a great lord to have some good bonuses for White Lions of Trace, Swordmasters of Hoth, and Phoenix Guards. So that's the sort of idea here. The other use is with the intrigue at the court. You can use with any known faction, so you can put them against one another, just dominate. That's a really good use. I would say that influence, it takes some time to accumulate, so be wary of that. Make sure that when you use it, it's precisely because you need it, and that you really wish to have some, to destroy or improve some relations between one or another. Okay. Now, in terms of rights, let's talk about rights. They're very nice. You have 4 of them, of course. Let's start with the first one: immense nutrition, casualty replenishment, rated corruption. Really amazing jack of all trades, like I like to say. So yeah, definitely go for this one, especially when the immune nutrition. Oh my goodness! So this is almost essential to make it bearable to go into bad climate. As soon as you can, pop this one up and try to dominate the southern wastes, for instance, just to ensure that it can withstand it. You also have more of a magical approach. So Winds of Magic Power Reserve, it's really good. Experience gain, that's excellent for all the casters. And then Hero Action Success Chance for mages and Lord Masters of Hoth. Of course, always excellent. Make sure that when you do use this one, that you have a goal for it, of course. Perhaps it's just the experience gain. Perhaps you wish more Winds of Magic, etc. Now, this one, influence per turn, always good. This is a great one to pop as soon as possible, so that you can accumulate a little bit of influence for your first actions, of course. Construction costs minus 15% for all buildings. That's nice. And then control, yeah, pretty cool. Finally, we have a dilemma. This part is often overlooked. A dilemma will offer a powerful magical item. This is a great way to get some magical items. It does have a cooldown duration of 30, so make sure that as soon as possible you can use this, so that you can, use it throughout your campaign. Maybe 5, 10, depending on how many turns you're really going for in terms of campaign. But yeah, as soon as you can, make sure that you use them. It's really cheap. It's more about the cooldown. Of course, with the recruitment cost reduction and recruitment rank for those, try to maximize this by recruiting some units when the dilemma is on, and that's about it. Now, we also have the Sword of Cain functionality. It's really far away. I would say that you may wish for Teclis to yield it, but it feels like an option that may give you an interesting campaign, but it wouldn't be for me. It's too far away, and it would create just a different playstyle overall that I think Teclis, you will benefit from already him being really powerful without it. But by all means, if you can get it, and play with the sword if you wish. Now, one specific mechanic, actually, that doesn't exist here. Let me see if I can recruit one lord. I can't because I don't have any money. Let me cancel this out. Now I can. One mechanic that exists, let me just recruit this one, is this, the dedications. So small buffs, of course. Most of the changes here are not for the army, but actually for the campaign map, such as income from industry faction-wide. I know it's 1%, but it will accumulate. So yeah, basically these ones, especially the casualty replenishment rate, this is cool. Spearmen, archers, and ranges, of course, are not really that essential, but still, just the casualty replenishment rate is pretty nice. Maybe you'll want to use this for someone to go into the chaos waste, etc. So that sort of idea, this dedication, just allows you to have a different take and gameplay as well as campaign ideas. Now, for province edicts, you have campaign movement range diminished for enemy armies, enemy hero action success chance diminished, more ambush success chance for you, and chance of intercepting an army. So, basically just a defensive one. Use this sporadically, or of course when needed. If you scout properly, you'll be able to see an enemy army approaching, and then you pop this up, and just a greater chance of, you know, being able to defend against it. Income from trade tariffs and income from all buildings one, so basically an income one. You also have a growth and construction cost for all buildings. This is mainly what I would use for a long time in the beginning. Corruption, of course, if you're suffering from corruption, pop that one up. It will go down very easily. And then we have the recruit rent and local recruitment capacity. Only +1. That's sad. If it was +2, it would be really good. But yeah. In case you're recruiting on that location, that's what you can choose, of course. Overall, you have nearly everything. This helps that the High Elves will be able to, you know, adapt to the necessities, let's say. In terms of army stances, you have a difficult one for Winds of Magic. So, Lilith's Blessing, it costs 10% movement range penalty, of course, and then more Winds of Magic than the typical ones, experience gain for all spellcasters, and miscast base chance minus half, actually, for all spellcasters, as well as speed. Speed is more essential to ensure that they don't get into harm's way, let's say. But I would say that just the miscast base chance and experience gain, it's always nice. You can attack while in this stance. Some people don't realize that. But yeah. So yeah, that's a cool one. You also have Encamped with 50% movement requirements, enables replenishment and immune to most attrition. Of course, make sure that you pop this one up whenever you're going into the uninhabitable climates. And then, of course, you have Ambush. Note, you do not have raiding stance, unfortunately. It's not a tactic that the High Elves may have. So Fortress of Dawn has no special buildings, really, other than the Eastern Bazaar and, of course, the seaport there. Now, this will lead to a research, of course, for more trade. So yeah, make sure that you research that when possible. Military requires 7 buildings, 2 of which can actually be built in fully in minor settlements, and they're rather good. You know, you'll have some good anti-large and missile units, as well as some fast cavalry. So yeah, ensure that you get those. Tier 3 units, advancing to that, are really powerful already. You have single entities with the Great Eagles. You have some war lines of Grace with basically an anti-infantry armor-piercing cavalry unit, let's say. Then we also have a White Lions of Thrace, so a good frontline unit. You also have Lothan Sea Guard, some Sylvan Guard, charge. So in essence, your artillery, you do have tools. That's the sort of idea with tier 3. Of course, tier 4 with the Sisters of Avalon, with Sword Masters of Hoeth, and starting with the Dragons and Phoenixes, that's where you get the most of it, of course. Now, let's talk about the infrastructure. You have the typical growth, casualty replenishment rate, always good. Income, and it can even get more income when control is 100, so make sure that you try to get the control. The good thing is that your control building also provides some income, which is excellent, and then when control is 100 it also has some more income, so yeah, try to get that up. Elven Court, it's required. These two buildings are required for technology, so make sure you build them. This one unlocks the Noble and has some more income from entertainment buildings, which is this one, by the way, so yep. And also you have a sort of jack of all trades, like I like to say. More influence per turn, this is important. Don't neglect that. It acts a lot into your playthrough. Hero action success chance, enemy hero diminished, of course. Income from trades tariffs and income from ports in the local province. So yep, if you have a place like this one, I have 2 ports on this province, so by all means I'll put this here. It will allow to give me some better income. So yeah, that should be a nice idea. Now, research is crazy good. It's crazy good. It's crazy lengthy too, but it's crazy good. Now, most of them are under a building that you need to get in order to recruit. To research, sorry, not recruit. And yes, it is costly a little bit, especially in terms of gold later on. But yeah, all of them, these are nice. The military advancements basically go through all of your units, so yeah, go through all of your army. It's excellent. And in the end, if you can research all of it, your armies are nearly unstoppable. They become crazy good later on, just with the buffs from here, let alone the buffs from the red line skill. So yeah, you can get your armies to become major powerhouses really fast, really well in the late game. As always, we have our Lord-specific skills. The yellow line, or caster, in this case is double for Teclis, because of course he's a major caster. And then the red line, or army, and blue line, or campaign buffs. Starting with Teclis himself, he's in essence magical buffs. That's what he has. He can improve his magical ability. He can give some good stuff for other heroes. So as you can see, for other casters in his army, and other armies. Notice that it's all characters. Sorry. And of course, his own spells. It's what makes him so powerful. And now, blue line. It has replenishment. And it has upkeep, as I like, and even has Elven Scholar, which gives you research rate. It's really cool. However, the biggest issue with this is, we do have to choose which ones go first. So probably I would invest into getting some good spells for Teclis, and then just start investing in blue line and red line, and then go back and just, get everything from Teclis for the magic. But you can definitely improve your army just with some regrowth here, some net of Amintok, some chain lightning perhaps. Up to you. There's plenty of choices here. Just make sure that you check them out, and then you choose the best one in accordance to how you're intending to play. Heroes, they're excellent actually. They do provide some bonuses, specific bonuses for some units, such as handmaidens, for ranged units. Let me mention them here. So for instance, the handmaidens, they do replenish troops, and they have some buffs for archer units, basically for missile units. The noble is actually a replenish troops. It have a replenish as well, so you can choose one or the other depending on your playstyle, and he's really good in melee. Then we have the Lord Master of Hoeth, a mix between the caster and a melee hero, which is always nice. I always love those hybrid ones. And he does have a nice lore to go with. His spells are really cool. And of course, you do have the greatest strength. Nearly every single one that you can muster, every single type of caster, all of the lore books almost. So yeah, you'll never run out of combinations that you can benefit from those. And try to make some different combinations. You'll be surprised how good they are actually. So here are the red line skills for the High Elves. Note that some units benefit from bonuses from the 2 skill lines, which is always important. It is rather expensive one, but at least we have some nice compositions between missiles and melee units, which is, it's always nice. Now, Teclis is focused on magic, but has net, which means that he'll greatly benefit from stay as stationary enemy. So having some arcane phoenixes and some missile units should take advantage of that. You may as well just build a massive hammer and anvil army, or just have some artillery to counter enemy artillery if you wish, and then you send in the dragons to finish that off while your army composition goes through. Notice how rather average to expensive that is, but still, it's really cool. Just ensure that you can spend those and then still spend more on the blue line and caster line, especially with Teclis. Now, typical army compositions can go into either monsters or chariots, as you've seen, especially Sisters of Alvarlon, never a big problem with that. But for instance, I have an army here that I actually used in one of my playthroughs, which, because the Lord had so many bonuses for Lothian Sea God and Illyrian Reavers, that I decided, well, why not? I'm going to make a composition with that, and it was a great sweeper army, one of the best that I've had. It could defeat some major armies surprisingly, you know, so yeah, they do have some interesting compositions for that. Notice again, red line skills, rather average in expenditure. For me, average is like 15 that tops. That's where I start to twist my nose, so always with a 15. So finally, these are some good compositions, especially with the slow from the Frostart Phoenix. You know, you can start to imagine the idea of, you know, slowing down most of the enemy and then peppering them down with arrows. You know, this sort of a sweeper army with just some elite units. Most of this actually has good speed as well and range, of course. So yeah, this is just an army based on chariots and, you know, a great army to ambush. This is an excellent army to ambush. And this is just an army based more on the white lions of Trace and other lions of Trace. This is always remember that your lords will have some specific buffs, especially if you hire them with good influence. So always make sure that you adapt the composition to that. I know by heart that there are some compositions with a lot of white lions or lions units, so that's why I'm showing some units here. Notice that the interesting part is how the most effective or elite armies actually are less cost in the red line than the other ones that are not. So yeah, bear that in mind. It is a rather average to expensive red line, you know. So overall, a focus of magic, and a nice starting location, actually, if it wasn't for its terrible climate nearby. That's the biggest issue. Now, Teclis' friendship with the Lizardmen actually may give him a nice outpost, which implies a good replay value. Just think how nice it would be to have massive lizards or dinosaurs in an all-out flying army. Armor-piercing cavalry that adds to your dragon princes is always nice too. So, overall, it's a welcome fresh air from the Ulthuan issues. You don't start in Ulthuan. Notice how far away it is. No worries about that. Let them fight over there. You just have your different take, your different high elf army and location, which is great. Remember, healing in all of those armies that I show greatly enhance their fighting abilities, so you'll have plenty of that as well. Army is composed of great infantry, great missile infantry, good cavalry and chariots, lacking some armor piercing, great single entities, average artillery, and it does lack early armor piercing. That's the point here. Replenishment's good overall, plenty of options for you to reinforce as well due to global recruitment, but the climate again, it hinders that, and Teclis suffers more than Tyrion due to the starting location. So, still, I believe now it is time for you to play with Teclis of the High Elves.